Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
I have a bunch of weird shit from my childhood, but they're not isolated incidents, so I'm gonna group related ones together. Story Group 1, The Scary Channel. Part 1, I hope this makes sense. Be between 2 or 3 years old. Parents took me to some department store with an electronics section. They have one of those areas where a shitload of different sized TVs are on display, broadcasting different channels. Get separated from my parents because I stop at one particular TV to watch what's on it. Can't really describe what it was displaying beyond calling it complex geometry or chaotic math. Images I can recall are like fractals and multi-dimensional shapes folding into one another on a black background, at varying speeds. Audio is just persistent droning. Shit for whatever reason reminds me of Transformers. I remember thinking this is some super awesome action sequence and they're fighting in space. Suddenly the TV talks to me. Non-verbally. Like, not quite telepathy either, there's just an understanding in my head that it said something. Nothing wrong with that. Too young to recall the exact exchange, but whatever it was asked if I was scared, because apparently it was scary. Parents, now freaking out, have them call for me over the store PA and tell me to come to the front or whatever.
Non. Thank God you're alright. Always stay by me or your dad in public. Why didn't you stick with us?
Me. I was watching the Scary Channel. We get home, tell my parents how cool the Scary Channel was and repeatedly make them try and find it on our TV at home over the next few days. They can't find it, or even figure out what I'm talking about. Possibly because the only description I can give is shapes spinning and changing colors.
Anything else?
In outer space.
We probably don't get that channel.
We probably don't get that channel. I'm pissed for a second, but then I decide to go play Batman or some shit. Later we go back to the same department store. Me. Can I go watch the Scary Channel? My mom says sure, and sends my dad with me to where the TVs are. Sure enough, one of the TVs is showing the same kind of rotating, morphing polychorons and shit. I'm psyched, telling my dad to check out how badass this show is. My dad just plays along, because it looks to him like the set's just not getting good reception. Just the garbled, distorted cross-channel mess of a bad signal. My dad tells my mom, and she's amused by my little kid imagination. This will be a recurring theme in most of these. So initially my parents think that they can put the Scary Channel for me to watch at home by tuning to a random station that we don't get with our cable package. They try doing this, though, and I call bullshit. That's not the Scary Channel. Still can't find it on the TV at my house. However, my parents used to always leave me at a daycare service of sorts while they were at work. I say, of sorts, because the woman ran it out of her house, but a bunch of the local parents of young kids paid her to watch their children while they were at their 9 to 5. I was at her house one day, flipping through the stations on the TV in the kids area. She had a separate, newer one in the next room for watching Murder, She Wrote or whatever bullshit that didn't have dinosaurs in it. Her house got it. We're all hyped because I had talked about it so much. Seconds later the other kids are crying, running out of the room, scared out of their tiny minds by something. Well, the channel told me it was scary. I want to talk to the thing in the channel that I talked about before, but the lady looking after us busts in the room and immediately turns the TV off. She tells me the other kids said I showed them the devil or something. I think everyone had said something different. Whatever it was, I wasn't allowed to watch it over there anymore. Over the course of the next year or so I would routinely scan through stations looking for the Scary Channel every time I was in different setting and given access to a television. Parents had heard about it upsetting the other children, but still thought it was harmless. After all, kids are dumb. Maybe they just got scared because I called it scary, and so their own little kid imaginations had formed horror out of the blobby distorted pictures on screen. A few notable instances followed. At my mom's friend's house, I'm sitting on the floor at the foot of the couch while my mom and her friend talk. I remember the friend gave me an X-Men comic, not a proper comic book, but a storybook formatted as a comic book that Marvel published for younger readers. That really stands out in my mind for some reason. I just skimmed through, mostly looking at the pictures. Let's see if she gets the scary channel. Mom and friend keep chatting, oblivious to the fact that I'm flipping through the channels. When I see dope-ass icosahedrons and shit, I stop and sit back a little bit, still only like 2 feet away from the set. Now they take notice. My mom tells her friend about my imaginary TV station. Oh okay. TV starts talking again. Unable to perceive it, mom and friend are a little weirded out when I talk back to it. I'm just babbling. Word salad. I tell them they can change the channel if they want. In the car on the way home, my mother asks me, ostensibly having a nonsense conversation with myself. In response, I ask her if people from different worlds still believe in God. She's fucking baffled. Brief final related instance. At my grandparents' house, all the adults in the kitchen. My brother and I are in the living room. Guess what I've found on their television? My brother just keeps going.
I don't like this, can we turn the station?
Decide maybe we can go play in the basement instead. Basement at my grandparents' house had all kinds of cool shit in it. Also unfortunately had a heavy, implacably menacing aura that made mundane things seem terrifying. But there was a dartboard. Receive this message as I'm turning off the television. TV.
The thing in the basement is real.
Nope. Decide not to go to the basement. One day the channel just wasn't on any TV anymore. Oddly enough, it actually coincided with network changes. One more dating back to the same part of early childhood, otherwise unrelated, before I go to bed. Be 22. Parents kept the starter home where we lived until I was 2 and had been renting it out for 20 years. Helped maintain property and check up on current tenants from time to time. I go by one day and discover the woman who was currently renting has self-ended. After her body is removed, and we've installed a new carpet with no blood or piss on it, something tells me to just go explore this now empty house. In the bathroom I find baby-sized footprints burned into the bathtub, leading right into the drain. Find out the woman died in part because she had a spawn kill and thought her guilt was making her hallucinate cause she kept hearing a baby around that bathroom. Find out 10 years earlier another tenant's daughter drowned in that bathtub. Already kind of spooks. Suddenly remember taking a bath in that house 10 years before that. There were footprints in the bathtub. It gave me chills, and that was even before someone on here mentioned that often in stories of drowned children, their spirit will attempt to lure other children to the same fate. I have limited time right now, but I've got a couple. Still 2. In the process of moving out of the aforementioned house. Parents take me to see the new house.
This is your new bedroom, Anon.
Have to just stand in the doorway and look, since it had just been painted. Empty, except for white plastic stretched across the floor. So why are there 100 voices talking inside? It's okay, but it's loud. Too many people talking. Later, have been living in the new house for about a week. Driving parents crazy by continually getting out of bed and leaving my room every night.
Anon, why can't you sleep?
It's hard with all of the people talking, parents stumped. Maybe I mean the neighbors?
We'll get you a radio so that you don't have to hear them. You can listen to that instead.
Forget this happened until I'm about 14. Suddenly I hear them talking when I'm in my room. Realize it's always been there, whispering to me from inside the walls. Gets steadily weirder. For example, there's an old bank vault locking mechanism permanently affixed to the wall, that was there since before we moved in. Anyway, extremely long story short, I still can't go into that room without music playing or something.
B12. Two little brothers and I are into ghosts and paranormal shit and ghost hunting. We used to take this tape recorder and go sit in our garage at midnight in the cold and dark and ask questions while the tape recorder recorded shit. We never were able to pick anything up except sometimes we would quietly whisper to freak each other out as a joke. I decided to start putting the tape recorder in my room and let it record while I slept. My older brother usually slept in my room since we had a bunk bed, but he was in Florida with my grandma for a month, so I got to sleep on the bottom bunk. First few nights, nothing on recording, although before falling asleep, I would always remember being able to smell this disgusting, dead, human corpse smell like it was rotting. I didn't really know though, and figured it was the sewer outside or something. Sometimes you could smell it. On the fifth night of recording, I couldn't sleep and the smell was pissing me off. It was about 1 a.m. I always slept with the door closed all the way. I had a night light that dimly lit my room because I was a giant pussy. I lay in bed, thinking about music, rolling around and humming songs to myself when I heard some quick tapping on wood, like someone accidentally hit their fingers on the door. I looked over behind me and to the right. My door was right next to me, but my bunk bed was pointed in the opposite direction of the door. It was opened from being closed, but just a tiny, tiny crack. It wasn't open enough for me to see out yet. I was kinda scared and figured it was my mom finally going to sleep. My mom had worked that night at the spa at the Peppermill. Shitty Reno casino. I get kind of scared, and I'm too afraid of getting up and closing the door. I was always afraid of monsters under my bed grabbing my ankles. I looked at the tape recorder next to my bed, which was on a stand next to the door and it was still recording. Then I looked back at the door just as it was done opening a bit more. It was about a quarter opened at a 45-degree angle, I suppose. Pee my pajamas and yell at my brother to stop and to go to bed or I'll call mom and he'll get in trouble. No reply. I hide under the blanket like I normally do and said this thing my music teacher taught me to make ghosts go away, where you would say in a strong and confident voice, when I count to 3, you must be gone. 1, 2, 3. Then you would keep doing it until you felt safe. Didn't work. Take the blanket off my head to find the door almost all the way open, and I saw something above it moving. I slowly inched my sight upwards until I saw it. First I saw the giant, see-through, shadowy hand gripped on the door as if they were opening the door. Then, I didn't see an arm, but some shadowy outline of a body. Then the part that struck me. I will never fucking forget it to this day and I'm 19 now. I slowly looked and saw its terrible, plain and emotionless, pale and shadowy face with no expression. Staring at me with giant eyes and no emotion. It was bald, too. Its other hand was on the frame of my wall to pull itself into my room. I couldn't move, and all I could think about was my mom, the putrid smell and my blanket. After a minute, it started mumbling things and then it escalated into a loud growl. I could feel it vibrating in my entire body. My stomach was squeezing as tight as it could into my toes. I then came back to consciousness and fucking jumped under my blanket and screamed and screamed. My little brothers rushed in and yelled and turned the lights on. I felt the biggest relief I ever felt in my childhood and the smell slowly dissipated.
Dude, did you fart? Jeez.
My little brother says to me as I can't even seem to gather what just happened. I ask them to sleep on my floor and they do and I fall asleep instantly. We also got like 2 more night lights. Fast forward the next day after school, my little brothers and I get the tape and rewind it to listen to the whole thing. Skip through the stupid bullshit we accidentally recorded onto it throughout the day, then get to when I went to bed. Slowly fast forward and play, and we stop once we start hearing me tell the ghost to go away. Rewind a bit and wait until we hear the doorknob rattling and turning very quietly. Usually it's loud as hell no matter how gently you turn it. Can hear a bit of the sound from the rest of the house break through into my room. You can hear some fans in the other room very quietly. As we hear me rolling to the tape recorder and dicking around with it, we hear the door open some more, letting more sound in. We hear nothing, which I recall is me staring at the door in fear. Then we hear me yelling at my brothers. Immediately after that, you hear a very subtle, guttural growl, slowly building up. We hear me telling the ghost to leave, hear me rolling around in bed and cowering. We hear blankets rustling, then silence. Me staring at the door I recall and breathing heavily. We can hear the guttural growl getting louder and louder, and you can hear some items in my room vibrating and rattling. Among the growling, we hear terrifying mumbling. A very deep male voice just talking at insane speeds. No idea what they say. Then we hear me screaming and my brothers rushing in. After that, I started having night terrors for a week afterwards. Didn't sleep for days on end. I'll never forget this shit.
I am 21 years old now. Spirits have been something I have been interested in since childhood. We used to do rituals with the eye on the paper and similar kids shit, but nothing was happening at the time. Telling this since it might have something to do with what happened next. It all started one summer. I was something like 5 or 6 years old, before any rituals or whatever. I started having this dream with no visuals. It's just dark, very dark and very silent, calm, and then suddenly very loud noise disturbs the silence. It was usually a woman's scream or train sounds. So loud I'd wake up crying. My mother was terrified since it started happening every week for months. And just like it started happening, it stopped. Then later that year, I remember it was very cold, so we went to visit my grandma. My grandma lived about 40 miles away from the city in the countryside. Calm place, so we came, everyone's chatting, having a good time, and I went to the room where we left our stuff. It was like a big wardrobe-like room. But I stayed here all the time, because that's where I'd find toys from my mother's childhood and I was interested. So it's me chilling in the wardrobe room, and everyone else chilling in the living room. First weird thing happened when my mother came to me and told me to get ready to go home. She puts her gloves on and 2 of the fingers are cut off. Middle and index. Of course she blamed me for doing it. And I understand that. That's the most rational and reasonable assumption. To this day 17 years later, I do not remember doing anything like it. This is where things started getting really fucked up. I got yelled at. Mom stayed angry for like 2 hours and everything went back to normal. For a while, I remember some friend of my mother invited us over. It was the first or second day of Christmas. My mom went to her wardrobe to put something nice on, and noticed hole cut out of her blouse. Guess who's guilty? Me. Yelled at again. This time more serious. Few days later, hole in my sweater. At this point my mother thinks I have some clothes cutting fever. And that was it. I started going to school. I only live with my mom and she used to leave for work early, so I was second to leave and first to come back home. So when I leave for school there's not a living thing in the house. One day, like a year or 2 later, I come back from school to find my mother's flower pots, like 7 of them, in different places of the house. No rational explanation in my head at that moment. Told everything mother. I believe she thought I had some kind of disorder. Everything started with dreams and then shit like that starts to happen. And as a kid I started to think to myself, am I crazy? But everything went back to normal again. Eventually I forgot it and life went on. Calmly, for a year again. Last time I remember as if it was yesterday. Sunday morning. Still in my bed, watching Tom and Jerry on old VCR. Mother getting ready. Don't really care where. Casual good mornings and not really communication. I hear her calling my name. I go to her room. From the look on her face I can see she's really pissed. I see pile of clothes on the ground, but she asks me to sit at the table and calmly asks, "Anon, what is wrong with you?" Being confused as fuck, I start mumbling things and don't really understand what is happening. She doesn't bother to talk to me. First time I've seen my mother cry. She just lit cigarette and went outside to smoke. I checked clothes and every single of them had a circle either on the back or on chest. Not perfect circle, but still. Every fucking single of them. For pants it wasn't a circle, it was just a cut at random places. Same for scarves, hats, gloves, everything else. When I saw this I started crying. Really started thinking to myself that I did it and I was crazy. Went to see people about this. Mother tried everything. No one really explained, since every reasonable person with common sense told her it was me who did it. I was scared of my house since that day. From then on to this day cutting of clothes has stopped. But sometimes I hear something like water dripping on the floor, when there's no water at all in that room when I check. Also the dream occurs to this day. From 2 times a month to 1 time in 3 months. It's just killing me. Am I possessed? Am I crazy?
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.